Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Twitter Space. Today is July 27th, 2022, and this is episode 5 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value focus topic. Now, ledgerscale was founded with two goals in mind. We want to provide educational services to the community and to scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, one day we plan to run hardware to provide infrastructural support to the distributed ledger technologies that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. We host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, and on Wednesday, 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. If I could, I just ask if everyone could give us a follow on Twitter at ledgerscale and retweet the space when you get a chance, so that if not only you, but if other people can find this valuable in the future.
Yeah, and so the point here is we're to engage the community, and so please, if anybody has questions, raise your hand, speak up. If you're curious about something, there are definitely going to be other people that are curious about the same thing. And this is a more focused forum. Today we're going to be talking about Flare. Normally on not on Wednesdays, we do open forums, but today it's just going to be focused on Flare. It's a pretty big announcement today, coincidentally. And if you do choose to speak up, just please be cordial. And I think most people know the ropes at this point. And welcome to the space.
Yes, and at any point too, if you have questions, like if we're speaking about something that you'd like us to go back to or don't want to miss it, feel free to come up, stop me, and then ask the particular question about something. I have no problem. But I think the best way to start it off would be to really talk about what the problem that they set out to solve, and how they're doing it, and then go into the protocols and the technicals of what they're doing to achieve it.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair. I mean, there's definitely, we basically do this all about the Internet of Value, so it's never just one network. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but I know you know more about Flare than I do. But
I don't know.
The problem is to help connect and be like a hub in the Internet of Value, right? Like you got to connect all these various networks, whether they're banking networks or crypto networks or, Bitcoin, XRP, Ether, Solana, Litecoin, Dogecoin, yada, yada, right? Doesn't really matter what the network, but they've got to be connected, if I'm understanding. I mean, that's kind of where I see Flare's real.
That's it. They want to be. They say that's it. The saying, connect everything, right? And so they've stuck with that from inception, right? It used to be bridge everything, but now it's connect everything, and I kind of like that a little bit more. Just it's more nonchalant that we don't want to be, like the overbearing, like you have to use this, but we want to be the one that can connect everything in a interoperable and smooth way. And so today, right, the biggest problem I think we see with a lot of these bridges between networks is that they're typically somebody is on either end, and there's a multi-sig wallet, right? And that would hold the assets that are being held in proportion to whatever exists on the opposite of the layer 2 or other network that is representing the tokens that exist. And so a lot of the times these multi-sigs seem to get compromised. And so what Flare has set out to do is make a system where you no longer need to rely on a single party or a couple of parties who are holding multi-sigs when it's a smart contract, so you don't have to worry about human error accidentally giving away a seed phrase to any wallet. Now,
That's actually a part that I'm not sure I fully understand. I've caught wind of it from a few different people. Can you expand on that a little? I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I understand, but
yeah. So instead of having a multi-sig, right, they have agents which are acting as the people who would provide the collateral to, or I'm sorry, they don't call them agents. They I forgot the word. I said it beforehand too.
This is the like when I go off on. I think it's kind of a joke actually.
Different
When
words,
nobody laughs, but
same
I think it's funny.
attestation providers, right? So for the attestation providers to provide that collateral to be provided on the network, somebody's acting as an agent, and instead of them holding the keys to some sort of multi-sig, right? There is a smart contract. Oh, Kashta wants to come up, and there's a smart contract that is on either said side of the blockchain, and that's what's relaying the information to ensure that the assets exist on either side, right? And so this is where it comes themselves being actually collateralized, because now even if you're using that bridge, you're not just relying on some single party who's just holding the assets. You're actually using an agent who has to be over collateralized, so that just in case something happens, or if they try to be like a bad party, right, you can be made whole on the network. The only downside to that is you would lose out on your tokens in that scenario, and you would be made whole with whatever the token is of the network, which would be either Songbird and Flare. And I think we should go into the difference between the two of them right now. So the reason we had Songbird, right, is because when Flare team was building about a year or so ago, they had a majority of the protocols already designed and built and ready. And so what we got was this canary network, or I like to call it like just the test bed network, because I think most things will probably grow there and then should migrate over to Flare. Um, and so they released 3 different protocols. So um, the first one was a combination of 2 different protocols, which they called a Turing Complete Federated Byzantine Agreement consensus. So it is a combination of the consensus that the XRP ledger uses to come to an agreement of validation for the transactions, combined with the ability to have Ethereum virtual machine running, which is the Ethereum smart contract standard. And so with this, they released that protocol with a Oracle protocol. And so the nodes of the network, which are also providing the consensus of the network, can act as an FTSO, which is a service provider or a data feed provider to the network. And so the way they kind of designed the system to work in a decentralized manner is they set all of the tokens with the ability to vote, and have the vote cast through who you're delegating to. And so every one of your votes, or every one of the tokens, I should say, counts as a vote. And so with that ability to have you basically delegating your vote for whatever things that will, like future amendments that will occur on the network, and then limiting the amount that each FTSO can have in a voting power in the amendment, kind of made in my opinion, a very decentralized system. So no FTSO can ever have more than 10% of the voting power on Songbird, counting towards an amendment change or a vote on something on the network. And something even more interesting that I found out today is they've actually changed that on Flare, and they brought that down to 2.5%. So no node or no FTSO on the network has more than 2.5% of the actual voting power, even if they were to receive a majority of the votes from people on the network.
Yeah, I think the whole the whole FTSO idea is really brilliant. It allows the like in proof of work you have miners, right? Well, with Flare you have the FTSO, and they're like actually bringing data onto the network. And there's I don't know the specifics, but there's a way that, let's say everybody delegates with this one FTSO provider. Well, kind of like what you were just saying, that FTSO, basically the rewards go down. So then you're not incentivized to delegate. You're incentivized to delegate to multiple providers. So that means you have like a distributed data feed. And then on top of that, all the smart contract operators who are writing, building services and smart contracts, they have reliable data feeds that they can use the input data. So then the network knows about the outside world, and then you can like do stuff with that knowledge as a smart contract operator. And it's all decentralized. There's I anyway, yeah. I'm pretty impressed with Flare. This from the system design perspective.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. And so this is what we have with Songbird, right? And so Songbird, in my opinion, is already more technologically advanced than I would say almost all of the networks that exist today. And now we can get into like the other protocols, which is obviously going to make Flare network, and also will one day have these protocols running on Songbird, which we have the state connector protocol, the F asset protocol, and then the layer cake protocol. And by the way, if anybody has any questions about anything I've said so far, I will shut up and I will wait for you to come up, ask some questions. I'd rather go backwards a little bit and get some questions answered and then keep going forward if anybody has any.
So when you vote on like suggestion on the network or development on the network. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, yeah. So any amendment change, right, which would be any code would have to be voted, and they actually have different levels dependent on the amount of votes that will actually be needed for something to happen. So they have like a majority, super majority, and then a super majority, depending on the depth of the actual code change. Go ahead, Kashta.
Yeah, so to kind of speak, can you hear me well or?
Yeah, clear today for sure.
Okay, cool. So yeah, to kind of go to Egyptian's question, the primary, and Karma really spoke to it very eloquently, but the primary function of voting beyond amendments, because amendments are only going to come up occasionally and they'll actually funnel from Songbird through to Flare. So it'll be kind of a bicurial situation between both networks. But the primary objective is to use the detachable vote that comes with each token to delegate to the FTSO to get accurate data into the network so that those smart contracts can use the data, right? So to ensure that that information is accurate, you're trying to cast your vote to FTSOs who get good signals. So you can monitor those FTSOs to see how accurate signals they are and who's not accurate, right? And you want to support those who are getting good signals, right? And so the way that they do it is they take out the extremes, right, and get the mean amongst those and get the accurate signal. So to keep the signals decentralized and to keep accurate data coming to the network, which is the heartbeat of the network, we want to be participating in the FTSO functionality because as I'm saying, it's the heartbeat, right? It's the data as Karma was kind of describing. So that's the primary vote that takes place beyond the amendment process.
Okay, because Kash, I'm asking, and it's not related only to Flare or Songbird. It's actually other networks too. Because basically, people when they delegate their vote or they delegate their coin, it's based on financial gain. Is that am I right or wrong?
That's why this is completely different, right? And that's why Def's going through all this to explain that this is entirely different network that has different objectives and different methodologies about achieving that. So in this case, there is no financial objective at all. And that was part of the secret sauce of the network and using the FBA consensus combined with the Avalanche consensus that gave it this smart contract functionality. It doesn't use the token to secure the network. So there's no financial incentive in this one, and that was part of the secret sauce of how they developed it.
Okay, how is that? There's no
financial. We should probably go over that, but I want to go back real quick, and then I'll shut up. The fact that only the middle 50%, the most accurate, only get paid the rewards of the FTSOs means that you really want to delegate to the most accurate FTSOs. Because let's say there's an epoch, you delegated to me, and I had bad information, and I didn't earn any rewards. Well, you're not going to earn any rewards either.
But
right?
we're talking about accuracy. But when you want to upgrade the network or you want to make adjustment to the network, then people actually not looking at the adjustment. They actually leaving it to the FTSO to take the decision.
So what would So what would occur is, right? And so in a democracy, right? And it's the same exact thing with politicians, right? You put your vote towards whoever decision that you want to believe in, right? So obviously find out, right? That's why we have decentralized in a big community. Find out what their decision may be, right? And then so you know who to give your vote for. I may be mistaken though. I think when there is a super majority, I think the voting will be different. It'll be cast directly from tokens. It would be like a DApp or something that would have to be made a smart contract. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to say 100% on that. But I will explain the big difference between the way that they are doing it and the way that a proof of stake system set up, which is I think what you were referring to before, Egyptian, right? And so
Yep.
in a stake system, it's you're handing your token over for somebody else to hold, and that is how the stake is being proven. And the setting of where you're holding it onto it yourself, right? In that I don't want to call it trustless because nothing is trustless, but in a custodial manner still, they can't be looked. There's nobody to look at as money handlers, and so like in the sense of a proof of stake network, um, right? You could say that they're handling the value, and so they are, you're looking at them to create more value based on whatever said they're doing with their business, right?
Well,
Because
there's,
Uh,
there's it's
and
a good point because there's two units of value with like a Flare or Songbird token. You got one unit of value that's actually the value. Like consider that like your bank account. Okay, that's value. Then you've got your vote. Okay, votes are also valuable. Like they don't cost anything. There's no monetary exchange when you delegate or anything. Um, but your two units of value, but they're like all combined in one token.
So, Karma, because I want to understand, I'm not asking just to like, because no, I'm trying to understand. Because let's say Cardano, okay? So when I used to have, I don't have Cardano anymore, but when I used to have Cardano, I would stake it. I don't think when I stake it, it's still under my custody. You know, yeah, I'm staking it with somebody, but it still is under my custody. And I feel the same with Songbird. Like with Songbird, with the FTSO, I feel the same concept. There is not much difference. Am I
well,
missing
so
something?
here's the big difference, right?
Yeah.
You don't even think about it as staking because what you're doing is you're delegating a vote, right? And so you're basically saying, here's my vote, right? I'm delegating to you saying that you are going to be the best provider, right? You're also rewarding them, right, with pay in the end of the day because they're only getting based on whatever their percentages of tokens they hold. They're only getting a certain percentage of the fee reward from that rewarded from the network, right? So, in the sense of it's a two-way street, right? You're providing them a vote and they're paying out a reward in the end of the day. Whereas in Cardano settings, you're staking to them and you're providing the security to the network by doing so. You're not providing any security to the network in doing so by delegating to an FCSO.
So sorry, and
Yeah.
that's a question for Cardano. I like when I stake with Cardano, I thought it's still kind of like a vote, or am I wrong?
Yeah,
Like,
well, here, this, in other words, Egyptian, and to say it a different way, with the Flare token, it's actually detachable token that you use to vote. So you kind of get in essence two tokens, right? One that you'll split off and use for the voting process. The token that's holding the value, you can still go move that into a DeFi protocol that's on Flare, or you can move that into another application that's in Flare. You could go trade it with Flare. Like you'll still have the token that is the value token. They give you what is called a detachable token that you use to vote. So that is a very big difference, and hopefully that helps you kind of visualize the big difference between the two.
okay, so I'm gonna ask this question just to clarify it, okay? Like, let's say in Cardano, if I stake it, I cannot use the coins that I'm staking in Cardano. Okay, you say with Flare, when you delegate, you still can use the Flare
Yeah,
coin.
yeah. I mean, you can unwrap it, send it, spend it. There's no lockup period. You're not locked in at all. No.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused here. Um, I know. I know. There's no.
Let's say you got an F asset.
Okay.
We'll go with BTC. So you got an FBTC. That FBTC has to be backed up by two and a half times the value. So let's just pretend Bitcoin, for easy math, is worth $100. So you got to have $250 of Flare backing up that FBTC. So when you delegate your vote, that allows the oracles that gives them voting power, right? Kind of like when you send a representative to Congress. I mean, Death, you kind of eerily made it a point I was about to make. But you send your representative off. Your representative is the FTSO, and they go and they bring in onboard data to the network. But you still have the value that you could use to back up and earn rewards on providing collateral for FBTC. So you can do both at the same time. Like you can vote, right? And you can have a bank account with money. And you can do whatever you want to with the bank account. If you don't want to do anything, you'll get inflated away. If you want to use it to back up F assets or participate in DeFi protocols and smart contracts and stuff that are built on the network, cool, go for it. But your vote is just a vote. It's a separate chunk of value.
So
it's still valuable. The vote's valuable.
Yeah. So So with the songbird that I delegate right now, I get like wrapped songbird. Is that correct? Or am I missing something?
Sorry, say that again.
So because I delegate my songbird, okay. So when I delegate it, I get wrapped songbird. Is that correct?
Oh, you would receive songbird. You don't get wrapped songbird back. But yeah, it's the same songbird. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can use wrapped songbird.
Yeah. Don't you have to wrap it to delegate it?
You would have to wrap it to delegate it. Yeah, but when you receive the reward comes as songbird.
I understand, but what I'm saying is the rap song the rap songbirds that I'm delegating, I cannot use it while I'm delegating.
So here's the thing, right? So how does delegation occur, right? Delegation occurs by saying, okay, so you put your votes in, right? Everyone cast your ballots. We're going to take a snapshot of it. As soon as we take the snapshot of it, you're good to go. Do whatever you want until the next snapshot. And so this is why you have to stay wrapped. And they've also changed this on the Flare network. I'll go into this in a second. This is why you have to stay wrapped, right? And undelegated if you want to get a reward and provide a vote to an FTSO provider from Wednesday to Saturday because a snapshot happens in between those couple days.
Okay, so basically you wrap it, you delegate it, then after the snapshot got taken, you can actually unwrap it and use it till the next snapshot.
Correct. Yes.
But the thing is, we don't know the snapshot time every time. Is that correct?
Well, it's between Wednesday to Saturday, and they've done this to prevent people from trying and rig the system in any way, shape, or form for themselves. And so here's a difference. Here's a difference with Flare Network, right? So you know how we have this 3-day kind of period, and then we have this like a 3-day vote period, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They've actually changed it on Flare, and it's going to be. I think it's like a 2-day, so you have to be locked for 2 days, and then you're free, I think, for 3 days, and then it's wrapped, and then you have to be wrapped and delegated again. It's a much shorter period. They've made it for being locked in for the rewards to occur, which also incentivizes, right, people to, instead of going around and doing other things with your tokens, right, it actually incentivizes you to provide that vote and to have a voice and say in the network.
This is one of the big, designing these types of systems, or really any business, is actually kind of a delicate and difficult balancing act. And I think the way that they've designed this network, it incentivizes participation. And that's, so all this like HODL stuff you hear in crypto, like when you hodl, what you do is nothing, right? So I don't know about you, but generally doing nothing doesn't accomplish much that I'm aware of. And so by the network design, it's just inherent in how the thing's designed. You kind of force people to participate, which is good. I mean, that's going to make a healthier network. What's the whole point of a network? Well, you got to bring people together. You do some value exchange, have some smart contracts / business logic, whatever, execute. You got oracles bringing data into the network. There's all sorts of different ways. You got votes. There's all sorts of different ways to participate, and it's like just like kind of built into sort of the essence of the way the network is designed. It's quite brilliant, frankly, my opinion.
So Flare is 3.5 days will be the reward period, and so Songbird is 7 days. Flare is going to be 3.5 days. So cutting that in half.
Okay, so this the process that you talked to me about, that's the difference between something like Cardano and something like Flare. Because Flare, yeah, when I stake, I have to lock it. I cannot I cannot do like what happens with Songbird or Flare.
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Well, let alone and so this is where we should go into the other things, because these basically all of we've talked about so far. I'm sorry, Tony, you had your hand raised. I'll let you go in a sec. But basically, all we've talked about so far is what already exists on Songbird, and we haven't even gotten to like the secret sauce, other stuff that like the F asset protocol, the stake connector, and the layer cake protocol, and we can even go into like how they've introduced this hybrid post-quantum digital signature scheme for the Ethereum virtual machine.
Okay.
We'll go to that.
I got it. I'm gonna stop interrupting you. Go.
Nah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, Tony. Go ask your question.
Hey guys, yeah, I was just wondering if you guys can go into the differences between F and Y assets, and also some of these assets that are F assets. What would give them utility? Because I've heard in other spaces people would say that if you were to put like Dogecoin, I think Dogecoin is an F asset, if I'm not mistaken. So how would that give it utility? As to, yeah, you guys can address that.
And this and Karma, we can make more than one. One space for Flare, am I right? Like it doesn't have to be only today.
No, we're gonna do plenty. Yeah. This is a Wednesday topic. We could do like 4 Wednesdays for sure.
Because there is a lot of
We're already halfway through, but just to answer the question directly, by having a F Dogecoin in your example, you can use it in whatever business logic the various smart contract operators design.
To lend, am I right? Like one of them is lending.
You could do, well, depends on how you design the smart contract, but yeah, you could do certainly lending. That's not difficult. You could do, look at the Flare Finance guys. They have, swaps, lending. Oh, they have several products. They have a mining product actually, where you can like almost like, I think you can earn like Bitcoin by mining or something. I don't know. I forget. It's been a while since I looked at their work. There was today there was the news with, oh shoot, I just lost the word. Who's the guy or the people? They're going to bring swaps, pretty big project. They're going to move over to Flare. Yeah. Like, so by having, your Doge, you can participate in these services that the smart contracts will offer.
It's the
right. So just real quickly, because I want you to be able to complete your dissertation, man, get to the other aspects. But in a simple form, Egyptian, it takes the money like that is Bitcoin or what we call non-smart contract assets, now Dogecoin, and makes them programmable money, right? So just kind of real simplistic, you have money that's not programmable because it doesn't have access to the logic, right? And then you have programmable money, right? That now has access to the logic function. So what it does is it gives any asset that doesn't have smart contract functionality or programmability the ability to now become programmable money. So that's it, kind of like in a real simple form.
That's a very good way of putting it. And actually, I'll take a side tangent real quick and then shut up. But that's one of the things that made the XRP ledger so interesting in the beginning, was you could do stuff with it. Like you had order books, trust lines, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go on, but you could do stuff. Right. So when you have the smart contract capability and like the EVM and all this, you can do even more stuff. You can do basically anything. I mean, sort of. And so, yeah, it adds all this functionality to these other networks that like Bitcoin can't do anything. I mean, it can do a payment. That's it. It can transfer a unit of value from one account to the. That's it. What I mean, how are you going to build? Like, you can't build anyway. I'll shut up. Keep going, Death. Yeah.
And answer Tony's question.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question really easily, F assets, Y assets. Y assets was proposed by Flare Finance. It's just a wrapped asset created by a dApp. It's what Flare Finance was calling their own wrapped assets, which would be done by their own smart contracts and their own methodology of whatever they're using. F assets is assets which are built into the F asset system, which is a protocol that is part of the blockchain, the layer one blockchain of the network. And so we have, I think there's 9 F assets so far, and the way they've set it,
No, sorry.
what was it?
There's initially, did you say 9 F assets?
Yeah, what was it? 9 now?
No. It was mentioned on the community call. I'm so sorry to chime in, guys. Hello, I'm Annie. There was originally on the community call, it was mentioned that there's 7. Currently, Algorand is still not an official. So we're looking at 6 at the moment. Algorand, if you want to, if it's to be an F asset, technically it doesn't need to be used with the F asset protocol. It would be used with the layer cake, because obviously we know layer cake is for smart contracts, F assets, non-smart smart contracts. So technically it doesn't make sense to be using Algorand to turn it into an F algo on the F assets protocol. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know Annie, she's part of the Flare
Stop.
Flare team mod squad for their
Yeah, guys. So at the moment there's 6, and Algorand really is a maybe at the moment. But if it is to be bridged, it would be bridged through layer cake, not F assets protocol. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, let's finish this topic, and then I'd love to switch over to layer cake.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're good on that. I mean, so F assets, right? We know F assets are going to be that are assets that are have a smart contract, which is part of the F asset protocol, which is part of the layer one blockchain of the network. And Y assets is really just a term that was created by Flare Finance to show that they're going to have their own wrapped assets on their dApp. But yeah, let's get into the layer cake. Because the layer cake, the state connector, right, and now this hybrid post quantum digital signature. These really like kind of game changing things that I think that nobody's even going to come close to, right? Like we have the things that exist, even though they're broken up on different networks so far on that compares to Songbird, but these different protocols are something that doesn't exist anywhere else so far.
Yeah, I got excited when Flare came about, because I was like, there was sort of not much innovation happening for a few years. And then Flare came along and I was like, ooh. And layer cake, I still haven't completely wrapped my head around exactly how it works. I know it's the bridge. I'm not sure what the advantages of it are. it's one of those things where I read it, it makes sense, and then I couldn't like explain it. If that makes any sense. I mean, I get that it's the bridge. I'm not 100% sure what the advantages are. I read it and then I think I understand, and then yeah.
So with using the layer cake protocol, right? And so this is something that needed to be done and needed to be used with the way that they're implementing the attestation providers right on the network, because so other than the attestation providers holding those wrapped assets, how do you prove for the network to know that the assets exist on one blockchain and can be represented on another? And so this is where the layer cake comes in, where they call it the zero collateral L1 bridges. So because the layer cake itself, right, is providing a smart contract, or they're calling it a light client relay, which relays information from one blockchain to the next. And I think this is actually some of where they took some of the Avalanche protocol from. And this is where it allows the Songbird or Flan network to scale in a linear fashion instead of like a much I forgot what the term Hugo actually used was, but in a instead of having to create 5,000 smart contracts to bridge 5,000 different networks, right? You can create.
Oh,
Exactly.
big deal.
What'd you say?
That's a big deal. Now I get it.
Yeah, so it's all about the scaling fashion for the network itself. This is where the layer cake comes in. So you can use Flare as the bridge, and essentially instead of needing a smart contract from Algorand to Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin to Flare, and then Flare to Ethereum, and then Ethereum to, you can now just have a smart contract on Bitcoin, a smart contract as Algorand, and then use Flare as the median, and or do this for any of the networks that you feel like connecting to. And so the layer cake is there to provide that light client relay and the information from those blockchains back and forth, so that the network knows that there's never something like a double spend occurring. At least that is my understanding to it so far. And I have the white paper open in front of me, so I'm going to look for any little things that I may have missed.
That's a scaling improvement. I mean, that's a big deal, because you can't. I mean, that's to if the network doesn't, if the network can't scale up. I mean, this is part of the problem with like proof of work. If it can't scale up, it can only get so big. So if that's if that's the advantage, and that does make sense, because you've got Flare as the connecting sort of tissue between. But okay, hold on. So there's the layer cake is one smart contract on Flare, but is it also a smart contract on, say, Ethereum? I mean, it's got to be on both sides, right?
Have to be on both sides, yes. But instead of needing one, so say you wanted to go from Ethereum to Algorand, and then from Algorand you wanted to go to Flare, and then from Flare you maybe wanted to go to Bitcoin, right? Instead of needing a blockchain from, a smart contract from one to the other, to the next, to the next, to the next, all you need is one smart contract on Bitcoin, one smart contract on Ethereum, right, and one smart contract on Flare, Algorand, and so and such, and so that you can interoperate them all.
So in essence, it's almost a little bit. There's a sniff of auto bridging or in there, but then that almost actually helps the other networks scale up, I would think.
Yeah, 100%. It provides them a scaling solution.
Yeah, because then they have a cheaper, easier way to connect between themselves, even if they don't really care about Flare, right? Wouldn't that make? I mean, am I seeing?
You hit the nail right on the head. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, Karma. So like that's the whole thesis behind what they're trying to do, is create what you described as like a hub that then all of the other networks can connect into the hub, and essentially you have one network, right? That bridges everything right around it. So like he uses the example, you're going to connect 100 blockchains, right? You only need 101 smart contracts, right? As compared to the old way, with all of the other smart contracts that you would have to do, you would end up probably in the hundreds, or I think it was even thousands of smart contracts to connect multiple blockchains. So yeah, you're visualizing it perfect, right? It becomes this hub that sits in the middle and allows even outside legacy systems, right, to all plug into this hub and each be independent, so they don't have to change anything about themselves. And then they come into the hub, and now they have that instant scalability, right, and usability that is provided by the Flare network. So I mean, from that perspective, man, I'm not the most techie person, so Def, you're doing a great job. But just from a simplistic level, man, it is brilliant to me, and that's why I'm optimistic and trying to see like how it evolves out. But yeah, continue on. I don't want to interrupt.
No, it was good. That was a perfect lead into the state connector, because as soon as you were talking about that bridging to the Web 2, right? And that's really where the state connector comes in, with the ability to read any API that can communicate with anything of WASM on the internet, and all legacy systems, right? As long as the API can communicate with, like, using like a C++ code base, you can communicate with the Flare network, or Songbird network, because it actually has the state connector protocol already running on it. But before I go into the state connector too much, one interesting fact that I find, because the question would be like, so why don't we use the layer cake protocol on something like Ethereum to help it scale up, right? And so the actual answer to that is the layer cake protocol is actually able to exist on these networks because of the quick consensus. So having that quick validation of a transaction and consensus broadcast through the nodes is actually what allows this protocol to be able to be running so efficiently, and to be able to transmit that information properly.
That's really a good point. I'd never heard that point before.
Yeah, it's a very great point, right? So because the way Ethereum does, its little consensus, right? It's just so much computational power, right? That's going into coming to a consensus, which causes it to have longer block times, right? And all of that. That won't allow the functionality they're basically condensing down with the protocol that came from what we kind of know as the FBA, right? With its mixes. So it becomes like, when you get to the tech of this, man, I'm telling you, it's like, it's really, really, really impressive, because they mix and mesh from things that were other innovations and create what I have to believe was influenced from the term of Internet of Value. Like, we know that Hugo saw ripples developing. We know he saw the concepts, right? But he was able to take it, visualize it, right, and then manifest it with the mistakes and successes of past blockchain technology, with a little bit of imagination, right? So, like, man, go ahead, man. Let me stop. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I love it, because it's I like to hear that you get so excited about it, because that lets me know that I'm not the only one that gets excited when I read these things. But so, and I'll read this little right off the white. I think it explains it pretty well. Right, the state connector is to relay the state of connected blockchains in a manner that proactively validates state correctness. So it stands safety attacks, recovers from liveliness failures, and the ability to proactively validate state correctness speeds up the state due to not requiring data availability, sampling, or challenge periods as it required in the light client relay setup. And so this is how it works with relaying information in a different way, but communicating and still working with the layer cake protocol. So to relay that whatever information, whether the state connector is communicating with another blockchain, or it's communicating with a Web 2 source, like a application of some sort.
Hey, Death.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Death, I got a question. I think I heard where is there some sort of Flare collateral that will be needed when you do these bridges, or?
Yes. So
okay.
They called it an attestation provider, right? But we can really call it an agent, or a collateral provider, because in the end of the day, that's what it is. Now, they've done something very dynamic, in the sense that anyone can be a collateral provider. All you have to do is build out a DApp and have the collateral to be provided, to essentially allow somebody to be able to wrap an asset and have it represented on the network. this is also where something in the state connector comes in, because these bridges, right, are then not only collateralized, but they're insured for the user who's actually using the DAP to bridge and get onto the network, knowing that the collateral is there just in case, say, there is some sort of crazy price change, which is always a a possibility when having a wrapped asset on another network, and arbitrage created, or having a bad actor try and run away with your asset. I would say the only downside to this is that in the event that somebody tries to harm you, like an attestation provider tries to run away with the money, the collateral or the payout to you to make you whole comes in the asset of the network. So if it's in the case of like FXRP, you wouldn't get your XRP back. You would get Songbird or Flare with a 1-to-1 value for the representation of what you lost, so that you could at least go out and purchase the asset.
Is that so similar to like the F asset? If somebody or agent ran away with it, how that kind of works? Or
Yeah, so the system is actually built really well when you provide collateral. It decentivizes bad actors, because the amount of collateral you have to put up is forfeited if you try and run. So in most cases, in almost all cases, right, unless the asset jumps up like 300,000% in a matter of minutes or something crazy like that, the attestation provider or whoever is trying to run away is most likely going to be harmed much more than they would be getting away with. And so,
Right. So, I'm sorry. But yeah, so what I was going to say is like, remember that all of this is enforced by the code of the network, right? So it's no manual processes that have to go for you to get your collateral back. And as he's describing, the main function of these other protocols that are all connecting together is to maintain one state. Like this is the innovation of block trading. Like it's like maintaining state in a decentralized manner, so that it's all decentralized but one verifiable state, right? So it's already over collateralized. Like if it's FXRP, right? It's already over collateralized 2.5%, right? So at all times, it's maintaining that state so that he has to maintain that collateral. And at any time that you request that you want your XRP back, right? If for any reason he says, well, I'm not going to give the XRP back, right? And it doesn't come back from his wallet or contract, right? Then the network will enforce an equal amount plus actually a percentage. And I think it was like a small 2% or 3%, 4% bonus, right? And remember, all of this is happening in seconds because the network has a very fast consensus, right? So that in seconds, you get that amount of flare. And if you want to then get your XRP, you're part of a decentralized exchange network anyway, right? So that you can immediately exchange that flare for your XRP back, right? And then be made whole without any risk. So that's part of why he calls it insurance, even though we all know it's technically not insurance. It just gives a very good description of how you're made whole in the event that someone either maliciously doesn't give your XRP back, or something, from a smart contract, happens in whatever reason you don't get your original asset that you brought over as a F asset back.
I hate that he used the I word. Oh, no, I get it, but and the other thing is, yeah, the if the people try and cheat you, the agent or tester or whatever you want to call them, if they try to cheat you, they lose, and you do get a little extra more back because that compensates you for the fees, because now all of a sudden you have to pay more fees, right? Because you got to sell the flare for the XRP and then go and have a different agent that can actually get the job done send you the XRP. And that's all fees. I mean, every transaction is going to be a fee. So they lose. You actually get a little more. Hopefully that's enough to compensate you for your additional expense. And it's probably, I mean, nothing's going to compensate you for your headache of it didn't work the first time and I got to do it again, right?
Yeah, and so there's an interesting thing though, because if it happened in the future, right? Say there was FXRP in a DEX that existed on Flare or Songbird, and if you were harmed by an attestation provider, I mean, if there's XRP on the DEX, you could actually just go and swap for it right away. So it actually might even pay off like Cash did with that 4% bonus for
Yeah,
providers to really
but
be incentivized to be a bad actor.
right, but Karma makes a very good point in that he's going to lose out in the collateral that he had to put up to even become an attestation provider, right? So he has every incentive to never not, redeem the asset upon request because there's basically no incentive in it for him. From the collateral side that he has to put up to even be the attestation provider, he's going to be penalized from that, right? And so that's really the kind of the secret sauce of that system is that it technically should never happen. But if for any reason we have to always say, then there is a way for you to be made whole. So yeah, I hope that helps and
Well,
continue that, man. Good stuff.
think about it. If you're providing these services, let's say, okay, like I painted houses for a few years. If you're painting houses, okay, and you pay me, and I don't show up and I don't paint your house, you damn right you should get your money back, and I should probably get a fine because I didn't uphold my end of the deep bargain, right? I mean, and so, I mean, for the people that are going to provide these services, the organizations, whatever, that are going to provide these services, I think that that's a very reasonable. I mean, it kind of just matches reality. I mean, you don't have to get super high tech with all the stuff. Like, just think of a painter. If they don't show up and paint your house, like, you want your money back, and
Right. So
penalty.
from the psychological perspective, the assumption goes that the reason or motivation that you would even do it is because you're seeking profit. Like if you're going to go in and know that you're going to be losing, then there's really no motivation to even do it. Right. So on a very simplistic level, like it's describing your intent for even performing the act is because you're there to profit for the act that you're doing. If you're going to do an act and your act causes you a loss, right, then you probably don't want to be doing that act, right? And on a real simple level, that's what it boils down to.
That's exactly it, right? Rather be a provider that just makes the money from the fees instead of trying to be a bad actor. And I like that.
The other cool thing, sorry to interrupt. The other cool thing is you can be your own provider, right? You didn't even have to use another agent. You could be your own provider. That's like, as long as you have the collateral on both networks, why? I mean, yeah, you can be your own provider. Nobody can stop you. Permissionless network, right? Blockchain, decentralized ledger, blah blah, crypto. Yeah, you can do your own thing.
I think a great way to finish it off. By the way, thank you for coming up, Gene. If there's anything you'd like to throw in there too, please feel free, man.
Oh my goodness, we're at time, aren't we? Gosh, that went quick.
Yeah, I know, almost there. So I'd like to get in this last thing. This is kind of recent. I know a lot of people haven't seen it. It's something that the Flare team put out a proposal of. It's a hybrid post-quantum digital signature scheme for the Ethereum virtual machine. And so before I read this, essentially what they are trying to do is create a Ethereum virtual machine or an EVM transaction type, which will be actually quantum proof, so that they can have the blockchain running with the EVM standard without risking quantum attacks in the future. And so the Ethereum virtual machine EVM relies on a secure digital signature in order to authenticate transactions. Today, these are implemented using elliptical curve cryptography. Quantum computers, and more precisely Shor's algorithm, threaten the integrity of elliptic curve digital signatures and thus endanger the security of EVM. National security agencies have advised the move to post-quantum cryptography standards and schemes. And so we propose a modification to the EVM transaction types. Specifically, we introduce a new type of transactions in addition to the elliptical curve signature. Includes a post-quantum signature, deterministic crystals dash dilithium level 2, together with a hash of both signatures, and this enables quantum-resistant digital signatures while preserving the speed and efficiency of the EVM. Now, I don't actually even know what the
That's like
Those are big words. This.
that's like a multi-sig thing. Gene would probably know best.
So this is
That's a multi-sig thing. Because what was the second type of something crystal?
crystal
What?
lithium level 2, and this is I wanted to ask Gene. Do you know what this code is, Gene?
Yes, in a sense, it's something NIST put out because there's 4 algorithms that NIST put out, which is Crystal's Kyber, Crystal's Dilithium, Falcon, and Sphinx Plus. I would say Crystal's Dilithium is using like Wolf SSL with TLS 1.3 with the Edwards curve 25519 signature, and then also implementing like IPsec IGV2 is the IP protocol.
I love when you speak, man. I have no idea what you're saying, but I love it.
Let me ask you a question before you go, because there is.
Wait a second. I'm sorry, Gene. Can you repeat that? Because I got distracted.
It was high level. That was a lot.
Yeah, but I'd like to understand.
Yeah, go into it.
So there's 4 algorithms that NIST put out as pretty much post quantum, or what we would consider quantum proof for now, which is Crystal's Kyber, Crystal's Dilithium, Falcon, and then Sphinx Plus. Crystal's Dilithium is what I perceive it as them using to fortify the security is using, instead of just using regular SSL, they're using like Wolf SSL with TLS 1.3 as the protocol to interoperate with SSL. Then it's in combination with the Edwards curve signature, the ED25519, and then the actual security protocol that would be used, so the closest thing would be IPsec, which is like IPsec using like IGV2, like Internet Key Exchange, but it's version 2.
All right, now I understand how it feels when people say I say stuff and they feel like they're drinking fire hose.
High level stuff, man. That's great.
There was a partnership today. Is that correct? Was that Dex or something like that?
But for Flare, there was the Pango Dex, which is the one of the most popular decks that exist on Avalanche, and so they announced that they're coming to Songbird and Flare, and they're going to be releasing a token drop, obviously for.
Here's because here's the question: how can we get the airdrop if we want to? What do we need?
They're dropping it to people who participated in their decks on Avalanche, and so I'm not sure how they're doing it.
You can purchase the token on their decks.
Their token
from what's it called? Is it PNG?
I'm not sure.
Is it the native token for that dex? What's it called, guys? Sorry.
It's called the Pango deck, so I'm guessing.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're purchasing their native token on that dex from between February 2021 till July 2022, which is pretty much, we don't have much time left for this month, you will be you'll be included in their Pangolin Flare airdrop.
The airdrop has nothing to do with Songbird.
No. So Songbird and Flare holders obviously don't really gain much from this airdrop, but there will be something that will be released soon that may or may not, depending on each individual how they see it, will benefit be of some value gain for SGB and Flare holders. But the airdrop alone is not for any SGB or Flare holders.
And which network is it on?
Avalanche.
Avalanche, yes.
Avalanche. 1 second. Avalanche. Okay.
And so, Egyptian, this is basically what I'm seeing is the rush, right? And this is the beginning of the rush. Flare's coming out. The protocols are going to be launched on Songbird. People are going to be able to see what they're going to do, and we're going to have this rush of developers and dexes and financial applications and games and you name it up the wazoo is going to be coming out in the next couple months, and I'm ready for it. But obviously, it's going to be a lot. I already know it. I can see it already.
There's some strategic stuff that I really admire about how the Flare team has executed what they've done. And
I'm
I think
right in your head. Go ahead. Yeah,
well,
go
I
ahead.
think
I'm right in your head, though.
what Death just said, I think that, this is a result of good strategy.
Right. Because what we're witnessing is even at this early stage is everybody understands the value of being connected to each other. Like think about it at its very base level. Like that's what they're understanding. They've been having success in ebbs and flows, but it's all been in their own siloed side of their network, right? So if you're in the Avalanche network, if you're in the Cardano network, if you're in the Ethereum network, right, all that activity is taking place just inside that little pocket, right? When there's a big broader crypto community, and then there's a big broader legacy real world community, right? And so people are understanding the value of being connected to each other. So Karma, I love it when you always say, like, at the end of the day, the stuff has to do something, right? And so what this is really providing is by bridging Web 2 and bridging Web 3 and bridging everything together is it gives all of this the actual opportunity to do everything, right? It becomes limited only by your imagination and just your willingness to be honest about it, right? Because one of the threat levels in this whole thing that I still see as a friction point is, the crypto community may allow tribalism to turn away from what may be a brilliant innovation just because it's not labeled as Bitcoin or not labeled as Lightning or not labeled as whatever, right? Post whatever the new thing is, right? Like if that kind of attitude comes in, right, it could hold back a little bit of development. But if people are just honest and they're seeking the functionality, right, then this thing has very good capabilities. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Okay, I actually, Karma, I like what they're doing, but I'm gonna, we have to see the execution because I know they do genius stuff. It's really smart, but there is other smart people out there that they know how to use, they know how to hack and do the stuff. So, like, hopefully everything goes okay. I really hope so.
This is where I would say, I don't know if you know what the company Trail of Bits, right? They're like people, they're one of the companies that if you're a government agency and you have to get one of your protocols, right, audited, like they're big dog, Trail of Bits. And so that's who Flare used to audit the protocols before they've released them.
I'm optimistic about it. I'm being conservative a little bit.
Yep. Well, I would say that they have went out of their way as utmost number one importance has been security. So I that's where I think
I like they took their time because that's something good. I really love that. But from what I've seen in crypto, I always wait for to see things actually working.
If
Right.
you're
And I'll just quickly say I always publicly acknowledge risk. So anything that I say, right, I just want to preface that, the risk always exists, right? And so I'm just
Exactly.
hoping for the best, and see what the technology does and then using it, proportionally, right, to the risk, right? So yeah, I'm just gonna publicly say that on my behalf.
well, let's say Egyptian, to your point, let's say you're observing someone, you hired, like, I don't know, a guy to paint your house. And he's like, oh yeah, I can get it done in 3 days. We'll get the crew out, yada yada. Okay, it takes 5 days. This is pretty normal. Like, I mean, when you really get into stuff, it always looks easy. Like, if you've ever, I'm sure you have, like, built a project or done something, then it's like you start off and you're like, oh yeah, we'll do this, and then that'll be great. Oh, dude, super easy. We'll be done in no time. A long time later, you're still working on, like, wrapping it up, right? Like, because if you're being realistic, like, and trying to do a good job. I mean, if you do a shoddy job, you can just sort of slap some paint on there and head out.
Okay,
But
Karma, you can be a good driver, right? Like, are you a good driver?
everybody tells me I'm actually a terrible driver.
Okay,
I'm a pretty nice person, but if you put me behind the wheel, I'm not as nice.
Yeah, what I'm saying is you could be a good driver, okay, but the person drive next to you is stupid, or an idiot. So it doesn't matter if you're a good driver.
So
What
the same same analogy though, Egyptian, I would say like for a car, right? Like you want to know that Hondas last forever, right? Because you've seen Hondas last forever.
Yes, yes.
And the same example of like, if we're looking at Flare, yeah, okay, it has a couple other protocols, but basis of we've seen Songbird has been running for, I don't know, what has it been, like almost a year now. You know, you could go 37 million transactions. So it's 100,000 million. Yeah, 37 million transactions have occurred so far. So that's a decent amount to see that if you go on the Explorer, you could see some survival. You could see that at least you know for what's been released so far.
Who made 70 million transactions again?
Songbird has.
But here's the thing, just okay, you know, because Flare should be bigger than Songbird, and I'm pretty sure it will be. And basically, you want to compete with bigger network. You know what I mean? And problems start showing when you scale. Does that make sense? Like when Solana started, everybody was talking about Solana as like, okay, the next, you know, the next big thing. But then when people use it, you know, like issues start show up and people now trashing. I'm not saying Flare is gonna be the same way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is,
well, I think what his point was just kind of was like addressing your point. Like his point was just that look at how many millions of transactions they've done. So I mean, a year.
And
that's Songbird.
Hold on, Annie had her hand up. Let her kind of speak right quick, y'all.
Annie, yeah, you go ahead. You go.
No. I was just. Oh, thanks, Kashta. All I was going to say to Egyptian was, yeah, you can have your concerns with numbers, but ultimately, how I see it when I'm explaining something like this to other members is there's a reason why they're Songbird. Flare could have just launched without Songbird, but there is a reason why there is Songbird, and Songbird does exactly why you have your concerns. Now, it might be done at a smaller scale, but ultimately everything is tested. Most of the big features, functionalities, protocols, systems they're all tested on Songbird before they are moved on to Flare. Now, if it obviously doesn't exceed Songbird's, fact checked and, checklist, it wouldn't be moved on to, it would not be migrated and implemented and integrated, onto Flare.
And
so
that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about scale. Like when it become like Ethereum. Let's say, okay, it become as big as Ethereum or something like that. Then, like, okay, will the network actually withstand this type of transaction? That's what I'm talking about. It's not like I trust
it
that
will, because that's the thing. Constantly that's what people don't understand is Songbird's not going to die once Flare network goes officially full mainnet launch. You will constantly an ongoing testing. It's not just going to be like, oh, right now we're testing F assets right now at a smaller scale on Songbird. You're going to constantly have it.
No, how can you test high scale something like Ethereum on Songbird? Does that make sense? Because
let me attempt to answer your question, Jim. And sorry if I'm interrupting, Annie. But there's different like threat vectors, right? When you talk about scalability and then like a network growing and where a potential failure can happen at, right? So it takes you to have to research certain other venues, right? So if you're talking about whether the network would just stall, right? If that was an attack vector and you look at the consensus models, right? That's why I used part of the FBA as this consensus because it has proven over 10 years that it has 100% uptime, right? So at no point in scaling have we ever think about the XRP ledger really having a problem because it's proven that from that consensus model, that can scale as much as we need it to scale, right? So it copied that for that reason. If you start to talk about value, right, then there's other protections that protect even a value threat level, right, from a scalability issue, right? And so you have to look at each of these components and say, what is the threat, that could potentially rise from scaling, right? And then how is it addressed? So it's not easy to put into one particular answer for you, Egyptian. One thing I'll say about the Songbird, though, and contrary to what Andy said is, and me and Weesty had a good conversation about this. If you are a coder that discovered a bug that no one else discovered, right? And even though Songbird is doing millions and billions of transactions, right? If the value is not, say, at one, let's just hypothetically say the value on Songbird $1 billion, right? But then the value of Flare exceeds to $30 billion, right? Then you may take that opportunity at $30 billion to then execute your bug that you found that you just kept if it was on Songbird, right? That because the value incentive just wasn't there. So there's still a small threat level there, but overall, I hope that addressed it for you, Egyptian.
Yeah, and so Egyptian, that is why the exact example I brought up was the amount of transactions, because I knew, I mean, maybe me just knowing you, I knew exactly what you were thinking. You were thinking about a network stall up just like Solana had, and so why I said 37 million, because even if you looked at Kusama today, I think Kusama's at like something like 12 million transactions, right? That's occurred on the entire life of like the 3 years, almost 4 years that has existed, where Songbird hasn't been out for even a year.
Let me ask you a
So
question.
they've abused it, and I mean in that sense.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. So you said 37 million, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, in how long of a period? Is like 1 year?
Less than a year, yeah, less than a
Okay,
year.
so what if it's 37 million in 1 day? Does that make sense? Because that's what put a lot of pressure on the network.
Well, yeah, 37 million in a day is a
No,
lot of transactions.
I'm telling you, you know what I mean? Because 37
Also,
million.
To be fair, I just want to interject one point. It's faster, right? So your inventory turnover cycle, like the capacity of the network to turn over transactions, like the inventory is effectively transaction
well, so
process.
I know that they can push the network to do about 2,500 TPS on a good day without breaking anything. And so also that's something that comes into this though, is hardware, right, Egyptian? And so this would go for any network and any scaling solution. There needs to be a sufficient amount of hardware being ran, and that just comes with time. But the protocols themselves have been built and designed to be able to rise up and to scale with that in a linear fashion. And so,
and let me just say something. I'm rooting for Flare because I'm gonna own it anyway. You know, I'm XRP holder, so I'm gonna own it. You know, and I want it to be successful because I want to use Ethereum, but I do not use it. You know, and I do not use it because the fees, and I hate that I cannot use it. Like, for example, like Quant. You know, I want to buy Quant. I don't buy Quant because I just don't want to deal with the fees. You know, and I hope Flare would actually succeed to make me use it because I cannot use Ethereum. You know, but that's me. You know, some people can use Ethereum. I don't. You know?
Yeah. Well, most important thing is we can't say anything until we see it, right? We can't.
Yeah.
You know, we can't tell the future. But I really enjoyed this chat today, guys. I think this was really fun. I definitely want to do this in the future. Another Flare chat. We could break it down even more, go over everything. Hopefully, maybe we can get a bigger audience, more questions. But if I could ask everybody to follow ledgerscale on Twitter, turn those notifications on so you know when we're going live, and retweet the spaces, because we are also trying to get this value, this information out to not only everybody in here today, but to everybody in the future who may even come a year from now and want to listen, because we record them and post them all on YouTube. But, I thank you guys so much, everybody, for coming.
Hey, thanks, Des. Thanks, Carmen. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have to do another Flare. There's so much going on with the Flare network. I mean, it's a big thing to wrap your head around. And yeah, I do appreciate everybody joining, and please share. I don't think we're at the 1,000 mark yet on ledgerscale, but we need to get the ledgerscale over the 1,000 mark of followers. So, if you have other people, ask them to follow it or whatever. But yeah, that'll open up some utility for us. And have a great day, night, morning, wherever you are.
Love it. Thank you, guys. Love everybody. Night.